Oralek, do you accept the reader's choice, or shall you make another?
Non tradissero.
No, I shall not make another. I accept the reader's choice, the reader's mercy.
La pensare.
Then it's done. For a moment, Oralek appears to be at peace, and then he's gone. Oralek regains his freedom. Accept this, for it is done.
Godspeed, Oralek. By the scribes. No stars remain aloft. The cycle of the rites. It is finished. The Commonwealth. What shall become of it? What shall become of us? Nightwings. The opportunity to gain your freedom from the downside. Was it not enough?
I showed him mercy, that he might show everyone else mercy. That night, the exile Oralek returned to the Commonwealth. He was to be the last. The stars had faded, and the cycle of the rites had run its course. He found the Commonwealth in a state of unrest. Spurred by the efforts of our liberated exiles, Walfred Sandalwood's revolutionary plan had incited the masses. These exiles, and the starless sky, portended the return of the scribes. The rulers of the Commonwealth pushed back. Fighting broke out in the streets, in spite of Sandalwood's intentions. It was then that the winged Highwind remnants chose to strike. This is not looking good. Allegations that the Highwind remnants were in league with the Sandalwood were never proven. However, there was no denying the results of the two-pronged attack. After enduring for almost a millennium, the Commonwealth had fallen. The new Sarian Union declared its sovereign in the next year. Among the changes is its elected leaders ushered in the vote to never cast their people into exile, and they abolished the old Commonwealth decree forbidding the literacy. Well, things are looking up. Today we still remember all of this. And we remember the exiles of the downside whose deeds led to the dawning of our age, whether they returned or not. True freedom. After the cycle of rites ceased returning, records of what happened to the Black Wagon of the Nightwings became inconclusive and contradictory. Some accounts suggest that the exiles of the Nightwings who remained on the downside continued to make use of the Black Wagon as their place of shelter and their means of travel. However, there is no record of whatever happened to the wagon's contents, such as the Book of Rites or the Beyond the Crystals said to be haunted by the apparitions Unwritten, or the possibility that when the lone minstrel took his leave, he took the Beyond the Crystal with him, for he was too obliged. No, I'm have it. By this line of reasoning, however, the Black Wagon itself should have been taken also. Others remain skeptical that the Beyond the Crystals ever existed, or rather, that the visions that it granted were anything other than the result of an active imagination or a fevered dream. The Bog Dwellers of the Southern Box offer still another explanation, for they are familiar with binding enchantments. If there existed such an object in which the Sisters of the Ark had been expelled for more than 800 years, then enchantment could have expired along with the light of the stars. What this would have meant for Sandra and the Beyonders is difficult to say for certain, other than it may have meant that they were finally released. Nevertheless, the fate of Sandra and the Beyond Crystal remains unknown. I know of it! Yet, those exiles of the Nightwings who claim to have seen this apparition have spoke of her with degrees of reverence or perhaps a little fear. Can you believe this, Raider? Honestly. Sandra has appeared before you, as well you can see. They are so far from the mark with all this nonsense. I want to laugh. In fact, here it goes. She laughs. She's referring to the account of her. You sense he does not care for it. Well, let them gossip all they like. I merely wish that they would mention you at least in the passing. When next they are at it, though, they shall never know even the half of it, shall they? Sandra seems irritated by the incomplete account of what happened to her. Assure her, the account relatively flattering despite the lack of detail. It could have been worse. Perhaps make some light situations to make Sandra feel better. Let's humor her. You indicate to Sandra that the real truth of what happened between you would perhaps make too lascivo a tale to be told in such a format. She makes a bemused sound at this. Perhaps that story ought to get out then, to think that they would go to all the trouble to make literacy accepted once again, only to print such a drivel. Anyway, let's keep going, lovely reader. You know the truth of it. That's what matters. She fades into the beyond the crystals for now, and you took it away safe. Oh, that's a lot. I'll read them all. I am the reader. What happened to this idiot? All his life, Sir Deluge had fled from one danger only to find himself facing another. He had escaped the war-torn waters of the Sea Dominion, he had escaped the blue borders of the Commonwealth, and now he had escaped the Rights. After the Heights Rights ended, many exiles wrapped up in ancient tests were crestfallen, as their last chances to return to their homes vanished, along with the stars above. But Deluge did not mind, for this outcome meant that, at least, there was no burden of responsibility weighing down on him. Having heard that Sir Gilman also had remained behind, Deluge made a point of avoiding him at all costs. Nonetheless, they went to each other once riding a cold current in the Sea of Solace. The meeting was tense and cordial. Deluge ended up apologizing profusely for mistreating his fellow knight, and that was the end of it. When most of his fellow exiles of the Pyre heart yet longed for the waters of the Sea Dominion, driven as ever by their impulses toward the conflict, Deluge settled down. Within him remained one of his companions, the late Seagrass, who had taken a liking to him for some reason. Reportedly, they disappeared into the waters of the Urim Gulf, which may begin to explain the significant increase in Urim population observed in the vicinity. He ended up well. So what about him? As the sight of the Rights drew to a close, it grew evident that the chance of freedom for the downside had forever slipped Dalbert and Almer Oldheart. Desgracia. Two stay-in exiles of the Fate returned to Jormur Valley. There, they struggled to get by as exiles of the downside tend to do. Sometimes after the Rights had ended, the old hearts at least heard the news that the Commonwealth had fallen. This was well after the fact, of course, but it brought old Dalbert great joy. Despite his forthright manner, he had no love for the knight and cast him down along with his son. Dalbert Oldheart passed peacefully in his sleep before the next new moon. In his final days, he implored his son to undertake a pilgrimage to the scribes. Almer never shared his father's views of the scribes, but respected Dalbert's wishes, and so, after a period of mourning, Almer began a new journey. Not a day went by that Almer Oldheart did not think about his father and give thanks to him and speak to him at morning and at night. Would that the stars had shone, for surely Dalbert would be there among them, smiling down at his son and watching over him and his kingdom. What with this guy? After the final liberation rite, Lando refused to believe that the rites had truly ended. He would sit through night after consecutive nights, staring into the blackness of the sky, awaiting for any kind of sign that he might gain another chance at freedom. No such thing ever came. His fellow accusers started to express concern for him. Survival had become their top priority as liberty had slipped from their grasp. But Landau dismissed Thanos with fools. He insisted rather forcefully that any evening now the stars would shine for him again and mark the way toward his inevitable freedom. He was, of course, mistaken. The authors in his triumvirate were left with little choice but to abandon him. After that exile known as Lindau the Liar was never seen again. However, there have been sightings of a bedraggled demon who wanders the downside and bears Lindau's cruel countenance, suggesting he yet lives. Oh, he became a demon. Interesting. This guy must be pissed off as well.
Más spectacular.
When MacLeod in their faults realized that the rights had ended and that he no longer could return to the Commonwealth through his decent means, he was outraged. It tends to be. He cursed at the scribes, spewing forth such a slew of blasphemy as to be very unbecoming of one of his high status and bearing. When at last he calmed himself, he focused all his energies in attempting to find another means of homecoming. He maintained regular contact with his wealthy family on the other side via messaging, and he used their vast resources to explore other means of escape. He tried using a laboratory pulley system, he attempted to retrofit a flying back wagon with superior propulsion, he tried a new craft and hot air balloon, even prayer. Nothing worked. There was only one way to escape the downside, and now it was gone. Tinder's staff bankrupted his family in this vain attempt, at least such was the shame that he retreated to the thin woods of the Black Basin to sing the root. There he yet wallows, complaining to his comrades of the cassidy who still put up with him, either about his own misfortune or at least news from the other side. Oh man, what happened to her? After her liberation, which renewed fled to her native realm of the Totenbox, rejecting all festivities and honor she could have received. She was never seen again during the events that transpired in and around the Commonwealth. Some of those with knowledge of the rights and the legends of the downside suggest that she willingly cast herself back into exile to be closer to Izulak. Other rumors suggest that her obsession with pyromancy and the dark arts ultimately consumed her. If she lives for her kind are able to live for many centuries, there is no telling where. Her repeated threat of the return of Slack were thoroughly investigated, and no credence was found to any of her claims. Barker Ashpals never had much interest in returning to the Commonwealth, for he always found its ways to be stifling. So when the rights ended, he did not care at first. He soon grew very bored. The rights had given his life a certain sense of structure he had always needed. He missed the raw anticipation of it all. He decided to continue conducting the rites. For the truth of it, he bent some of the rules and replaced some of the objects, but it was close enough. His packmates, the dissidents, proven more than happy to participate and to stay run against each other back in the Jomon Valley. Gradually, other exiles familiar with the rites as well as those who had not heard of it at all started to take interest. They ended up giving Barker Ashpal some healthy competition. His old fellow with Lucky Greentails isn't meaning anything to him, and he forgot all about it amid with his new pursuits. Ultimately, even Barker Ashpals, who had led such a directionless existence to that point, found something of a calling through the rites. Whether he took the rites less seriously than any other exile of his time or more, was often debated by those who watched him work. He got an interesting one. What about you? Through her exile, Tamitatain was motivated by a single goal: to return to the Commonwealth and exact vengeance on her exiled enemies. When she realized the rights had ended and that she would never see her mountain home again, she nonetheless remained determined to aid her people however possible. She had gathered certain information pertaining the intentions of the Nightwings, who had formed a pact to regrow on the other side after the liberation. Other siege reporters exposed certain weaknesses in the Commonwealth defenses and revealed to the Nightwing remnants the opportunity for a risky but potentially impactful strike. Though Tamita would not participate in the assault, she nonetheless contributed to its success. She later learned that her sisters of the Rhine remnants carried out her name as a battle cry as they swooped down upon their enemies. Soon after the fall of the Commonwealth, Tamita encountered her blood sister Pamita, come to pay her a visit. Pamita had helped her take people's victory on the other side when we called for reconciliation. Tamita was skeptical of her intentions, however, and lashed out at her. Pamita made no attempt to elude her attack and was struck full on. This caused Pamita to use of her right wing, yet after she recovered she shrugged the incident aside and said they would call it even now. From that point on, the Blood Sisters kept a formal distance, but were cordial with each other. Knowing that the conflict on the other side had ended, Tamita retreated to the crack of the Black Basin and grew even more distant. Those closest to Raz surmised that her inability to reconcile with her blood sister was the heart of this too. For her part, Tamita never once admitted to any such weakness. So Tizo, how are you? After White's ended, Tizo had a job to do, quite unlike most exiles trapped forever in the downside. The Lone Minstrels asked that he watch over the Black Wagon, which the Nightwings had used extensively for travel and for shelter all throughout their quest. Tizo obliged, for he knew that the wagon, as well as the drive inhabitants, perhaps better than anyone. What became of the wagon exactly was never verified, as evidence of Tizo's thorough work. After that, he liked to while away his days with any of his friends or else with fellow imps. Sunda would sometimes call for his assistance, and Tizo was always happy to oblige. The two would often reminisce about their times with the Lone Minstrel. He often chirped about the reader of the Nightwings, with whom he built quite a rapport. The reader understood him perhaps better than anyone. Indeed, Tizo would often express wistful gratitude for all his time with the Nightwings and their many adventures throughout the land that was always his home. Other than that, Tizo would sometimes help interpret the messengers relaying news to and from Saharian Union. Our nation formed after the fall of the Commonwealth. One day we all may stand shoulder to shoulder with a common cause. Wolfred Schmidt. Speed had gained significant celebrity aboard, he never let it get to his head. And he would go fishing in the sea solids at every single chance he got. So, how are you doing, Edwin? After his liberation, Edwin was instrumental in the events leading to the fall of the Commonwealth and was vital to the outcome of the plan. He was the one who led the raid on the stronghold where Archieus under Belus 9 was holed up on the fighting when the fighting grew fierce. Within him, then, the day after, was one of the winged harps of the Highwing Remnants, later identified as Fikani Shang. A harp from one Hedwin cared deeply. They were separated when Hedwin was exiled. You found your girlfriend, nice! Their bond was vital to the peace that followed. In all his day as leader of the Saharian Union, Hedwin often confided in his friend Jodariel. Leader of Saharian Union! I like the sound of that, Hedwin. Despite her intense manner, there was no one whom he trusted more in times when circumspection was required. Edwin would often think back about the vow he made at the beginning of this quest for freedom. Although he cherished all the friendship he made, he had pledged Jodariel, Rookie Greentail, and the reader of the Nightwings that they might all be free again together. He had broken that vow, for in the end not all of them were able to return. A terrible guilt over his darkened his mood for a time. However, the others whom he still knew lifted his spirits, much like he had often lifted theirs all the Nightwings knew the stakes. While the others who stood with the Nightwings were not all able to remain in contact with us, Hedwin thought of each of them often, and so in turn did they often think of him. So Gilman, how are you doing? The Wormy Knight Gilman had elected to go into exile as penance for his failure to uphold his military obligations to the Commonwealth. To him back his freedom was a tantamount to erasing the shame of his past. His honor was at stake, more so than anything. Yet when it became clear for him that he would not go free again through the rites, he readily accepted the outcome, for he knew by then that much more was on the line. He regretted not having had a chance to contribute directly to the events that transpired in the Commonwealth, though he was pleased to hear the outcome. The conclusions of the rites and the fall of the Commonwealth made clear to him that his days as a knight had ended. He declared to all those in earshot that he would never fight again. Unless of course there arose some other extraordinary set of circumstances, again requiring him to fight, but he certainly hoped not. He still regularly through never found as skilled and as motivating of a partner as his fleet-footed friend Lucky Greentail, whom he remembered fondly. From time to time, he would seek guidance from his former comrades Big Bertrude, much as his elder and wellspring of perspective on his life decisions. He was always grateful for the counsel of the leader and would regale then over and over about the time they squashed the spawn of confinement plans. He wasted no time dwelling on his days under the leadership of Sir Deluge, his former commander, and the ruined knight stayed well clear of him. Gilman never did return to his homeland of the Seal Dominion and was content to lead a monastic life on the small residence in the hills. It was just high up enough to make him keep striving to conquer his fears of heights. Other than that, an intense daily training regimen and the occasional vision from an old companion was more than enough to keep him optimistic and engaged. He knew by then that honor was not something to be won, but a contract with oneself, to be renewed each day. How are you doing, Rai? The Commonwealth had never provided a sense of home for the one that they called Rai the Wretched, so she was surprised on return that she was so well treated. She felt uneasy about it, and besides she knew that she would do her best to fulfill the pledge she had made to her friends. Even she could not have expected the impact she would have on the events that followed, which gave rise to Sarian Union. Wright stood with the others on the nights of the scribe's return. Inspired by the liberated exiles, the people of the Commonwealth demanded new leadership. She did not take up arms but spoke of the scribes with conviction and sincerity. Others were caught off guard that it helped quell the dangers of the situation. After the fall of the Commonwealth, there was a renewed interest in the legend of the 8 scribes and many new interpretations of their histories and teachings. Rai found herself at the center of all this. Her ways continued to compel a growing audience. She swayed many people from the astralist beliefs, the beliefs in the stars. Okay. Soon the 8th Word, a Theotract sect believing that the 8 scribes were more than mortal, in their words divine, which had lost favor with the people during the reign of the Commonwealth, sought her out and asked her formally to join, and she did, right away. Through it all, she would wonder how her little friend Tiso had fared. But they were divided now by a great distance. He always remained in her heart. She cited her relationship with Jodariel as the single most important thing in her life. Jodariel would always provide for her a circumspect perspective and the wisdom of experience. Rai always was devoted to her fate, but more so to her friends. Many people in the Sarian Union see that her gentle manner and unwavering conviction helped them brave the changing times with courage and grace. How are you doing, Rocky? After Rocky Greentail earned back his freedom, he returned to a lavish welcome ceremony in the Commonwealth and was the tenants for liberated exiles. It was everything he could have hoped for, and soon he was well off, surrounded by luxury, and choosing between various exciting opportunities. However, he must have given in to his better judgment, as he didn't happen siding with Wolfram and Old's revolutionary forces as he promised. On the nights of the scribe's return, Greentail kept buzzing, barking orders to Wolfram's agents. As the situation grew tenser, he took rather well to leadership. When dawn finally came and it became clear that the Commonwealth to the Commonwealth that everybody knew would be no more, he realized many new opportunities waited. He became quite a lucrative career for himself, manufacturing and selling replica merchandise inspired by the downside. His main struggle was to meet demand. An aspect of his conscience cautioned him against making light of such thing, but the money was too good and soon his family was well off, as he always said. Grintail always did his best to keep in touch with all his many friends and knew that he owed his fortunes to them. He made a special point of staying close to the group of friends he came to know so well during his time with the Nightwings, wherever they were. They share a special understanding that put even Grintail at a loss for words sometimes. How are you doing, Jodie?
Consilda Virius.
After her liberation, Jodariel soon became an icon of the movement that led to the collapse of the Commonwealth and the rise of the Sarian Union. Her military powers and experience led to key victories in clashes against the Commonwealth loyalists. Each time she was able to subdue the opposition, avoiding lethal force. In the uncertain times that followed, Jodariel's seasoned expertise often came into play both in matters of security and of state. For instance, she conscripted and trained a team of volunteers in public safety. The community did not know what to make of such cordial bunch at first, but some came to value their service. They have stood for the people ever since, and we celebrate their funding day each year. She commanded close with Edwin, although his experience and they support each other through their struggles many times. She kept an eye on Rai, who nonetheless demonstrated a surprising knack to get by on her own, though Jodariel was always willing to provide assistance just in case. Sometimes later she ran into the Ignarius, also liberated, but their arms had started to recede by then. The two of them grew close and so took residence together. I can't believe this is happening. She continued training on her own regiment, a regiment that grew strict with each passing year. There were those who sought to train with her, and she sometimes obliged. There remained one constant in her life: she would always remember her days among the Nightwings, and with fondness for the most part. Okay. Having returned to the Commonwealth, Ignarius experienced a little trouble integrating back into society. For one thing, no one there had seen demons such as he, something that he used to draw crowd at the public house he founded. It did not survive the fall of the Commonwealth, but his former establishment at the Starry 8, famous tavern, sometimes dead. He was welcomed back, and soon he was put in charge. One day he ran into Jodariel, and without the pressure of the rights, they hit it off. That time, she denied ever joining his company, yet they never left each other's side. This is a great couple. To his glory days as the most powerful conductor of the rights has long since passed, he always enjoyed the fearsome reputation he had cultivated at the time. What a couple, what a freaking couple. What happened to this guy? With rights drawn to a close, the slug market's revenues fell precipitously, and Falcon Ron was forced to liquidate his assets and close up shop. Yet, as it's sometimes the case with those of an entrepreneurial leaning, this time of hardship led to an epiphany, or at least a sudden change of fortune. One day, Falcon Ron had run in with a messenger imp bearing news from the other side. Ron gave it to one of his remaining trinkets, which could not be sold. The following week, the messengering imp returned to him bearing a tidy sum of wealth, with newly minted coinage from the Sarian Union. Falcon Ron cut a long-term deal with the messengering imp, and then and there. Though he still remained in a grey area from a legal standpoint in the Sarian Union, the newfound fame of the downside caused Falcon Ron's goods to explode in popularity. He later signed an elaborate agreement with Big Bertrude and found a distribution partner in other side through Rookie Grintail, whose own business had expanded. Especially in the Sarian Union, Falcon's Ron goods are still known for their superior quality, 2. He assumes no liability for any side effects. How are you? After the rites ended, Pamitatain parted ways with other Nightwings and stated that she needed time alone. She reappeared sometimes after the fall of the Commonwealth, although she expressed mild surprise at the news. She claimed to have knowledge of what went on, including what role the High Wings remnants had in the events that reshaped the world on the other side. For her part, Pamita feigned little interest, making their point that they were stuck and what happens elsewhere had little to do with them now. Someone with whom she kept in contact was the bog dweller called Big Bertrude. Well, Bertrude's popular among the Nightwings. They would discuss all sorts of matters long into the night, and sometimes hunt together too. One day, while traveling to Black Basin, Pamita ran into her blood sister Tamita for the first time since the conclusion of the rites. The reunion was not amicable as Pamita might have hoped, and Tamita is still resentful of the story together, turned violent. Pamita would later brush aside the incident, to always had an injury to show for it. Yet, from that point on, the Blood Sisters were back on speaking terms, at least for the most part. Having long since felt as though she had no home to call her own, Pamita continued traveling about the downside. As the tempest swept across the lands, changing its features, she found in it a sublime beauty, and the starless lights she still could see just fine. She said such travels tend to remind her of when she was younger and could fly unfettered. So Bertrude, you are quite popular. Several exiles of the Nightwings care more for the plan of Sandalwood than to return home from the downside. The clone called Big Bertrude was a prime example. She had found a suitable environment to live within the dismal region known as Flagging Hands. There she had built up a thriving place of business known to many exiles in the land. With the rites having ended, she returned to her preoccupations, working away almost as though nothing had happened. When one gets to be more than 400 years of age, perhaps even monumental events such as the culmination of the rites or the collapse of the Commonwealth are seen as trifling matters. Much of her effort was doubtless due to the influences of Sandalwood, someone who she had admired now for decades. He had made clear that he could not requite her feelings for him, but what could have been a hurtful dismissal led on to a deeper understanding between them. She maintained an unlikely kinship with the harp Pamitatain, whom she had known during their time together in the Nightwings. They each had different strategies for dealing with life's day-to-day annoyances, a subject that they both found vital, if not fascinating to no end. By and large, Bertrude kept focused on her work, whether casting small enchantments or imbuing talismans. The work brought her a sense of purpose, she would say. In the Commonwealth, such services were strictly forbidden, but in the downside, there was a real need for simple luxuries, which the competing slug market could not always provide. Thus did Big Bertrude continue to live up to her name, and the tales of her days with the Nightwings made her that much more the living legend. How are you? When the cycle of the rite ceased turning, Volfart Sandalwood turned towards the starless sky and closed his eyes and prayed. It was all that he could do at that stage of his plan. He aspired to assemble with the liberated exiles representing each of the 8 largest ethnic groups composing the population of the Commonwealth. They would stand together as vision of the 8 scribes return, inspiring the masses to embrace an older set of values from before the Commonwealth had tightened its grip. With the rites ending sooner than expected, the ideal scenario became impossible. Sandalwood's own freedom, for instance, was now for fate. Yet the plan did have contingencies. Word reaching him that the night of Scribe's return, several of his fellow liberated Nightwings stood together, and their voices echoed through the streets. It was vital to Sandalwood that the stand against the Commonwealth be peaceful in its nature, but this proved to be untenable, especially after the Highwing remnants appeared. There was speculation that their well-timed assault may not have happened by coincidence, though Sandalwood denied any involvement and regretted the bloodshed. Nevertheless, the main thrust of the plan had been achieved. Sandalwood kept busy after that, as much as possible, proving counsel from afar to those who would be at the forefront of the birth of the Thessalian Union. Of course, being stranded in the downside meant that there was only so much he could do. Resting assured that the future of the nation was in capable hands, he returned his attention to the remaining exiles of the downside. He might never return to that new nation, but at least they could experience its triumphs and its struggles in some vicarious way. So he took to his old work, writing and printing. As literacy began to spread again throughout the Thessalian Union, so did exiles of the downside take to it. For his part, Sandalwood helped to teach as many as he could. More than that, he provided the material to read, a semi-annual report about the latest events both in the Thessalian Union and the downside. This periodical gave many exiles something to look forward to. One of his allies in all of this was the Tizo, with whom he traveled all across the downside. Sandalwood often cited Tizo as the wellspring of his own enthusiasm for a brighter future, such as the creature's spirit. He welcomed the company of the reader of the Night Wings at every opportunity and counted Ten as trusted friend and keen editor. He was pleased to hear that his one-time friend Oralek had once more become a productive part of his society, yet he spoke little of their time together. As Walfred Sandalwood gained more fame throughout his land for all his sacrifices and his contributions, it is said that he remained steadfast about two things. The first is that the cause itself ought to remain in the focus, the freedom that the people had achieved, and was a gift to be cherished, a set of values that needed to be returned. The second point he made was that he himself had little to do with the outcome. He would often praise the exiles of the Night Wings who had stood with him, each in turn by name. He never forgot any of them. One day, to commemorate his birthday, the people of the Thessalian Union unveiled a monument depicting him and the Night Wings as he mentioned in their prime. While Sandalwood did not learn of it until much later, it was said that he was moved to tears, then by the gesture. It was since ensured that those of us with memories more fallible than that of Sandalwood likewise remember the achievements of his fellow former exiles and our cause. So Oralek, what did you do?
Consulta videos.
In the aftermath of the final liberation rite, Oralek at least returned to his nation, one he had not seen in nearly 2 decades. He scarcely recognized it, after all, it was in the midst of a transformation, a social and cultural upheaval sparked by Walfred Sandalwood's plan. When Oralek witnessed the people of the Commonwealth gathered in solidarity under the black sky, there on the nights of the Scribe's return, he looked on in silence for a time. Then the Highwing's remnants descended, and a panic quickly spread among those gathered. A pitched battle erupted in the streets. It was chaos. Oralek observed all this, then took a step forward in the fray. He knelt beside the closest injured man to him. He staunched the man's bleeding and set an injured leg, then pulled him into a safer corner of the street. Oralek's old abilities as a physician had not left him during all his years, just did he aid as many as he could throughout that night until the danger passed. History would know him as the Demon Doctor, a term of endearment that stuck even after his horn started to recede. He lent his skill and service throughout the birth of the Thessalian Union. The one that he called the Shadow of the False Night Wings was someone whom he thought of often. He knew he owed his freedom to them. Having witnessed the aftermath of the Sandalwood's plan, Oralek understood at least what his former companion wanted. Years ago, they conceived a version of this plan. Now Oralek found he wished Sandalwood could be present to witness the reality of it. Alone with his thoughts, Oralek would sometimes visit the memorial of the fallen leaders of the Commonwealth. Though others than such a though other than such appearances and notwithstanding his duties as Master Physician of the State, Aralek led a very private life. Few would have guessed that he also was one of the most accomplished rites conductors in the history of the Nightwings. History, of course, shall ensure that we shall not forget. Did you two marry? Please say you did. After the cycles of the rites is returning, the lone minstrels bade the remaining Nightwings take the Black Wagon and seek their fortunes elsewhere in the downside. Their parting was heartfelt but brief. We remained there at the summit of Mount Aludia with Celeste, where the two of them would chronicle the final outcome of the cycles. Neither Tarek nor Celeste were ever seen again. We know all this now through songs attributed to them. Some claim these songs originate in the times of the Syrian Union and merely were imbued with weight of folklore. However, exiles liberated from the downside corroborated each other's claims at having met this duo that presided over the liberation rites. Another folktale suggests these minstrels were the heralds of the scribes. Having fulfilled their obligations, they departed to the world we know and rejoined their patrons. One of their famous songs describes another, simpler outcome, that the two gave up their duties to the rites in favor of a life that they could share together. In any case, they are likely to remain the subject of such verses and such songs, for it was they who watched over the rites and ushered in our times. There is no more account which warrants the mention. There is one more. The Nightwings conduct their rites under the guidance of a reader. Little is known of them. However, some accounts often begin to paint a picture. We know they were of common birth, weak-framed to raised with a penchant for learning. The journey to the downside left them close to death. It was then that the Nightwings found them. They brought them from the brink, they showed them the path. They pressed onward with the others. They had made a vow to help their friends be free. They thus did the cycle of rites commencing its final turns. When the final rite arrived, reader freedom was at stake. In the end, however, they remained in exile. From that point on, accounts of them diverged. It was said the voice which troubled them, they never heard again. Some say they helped improve the lives of other downside exiles. True others, whether that is true, only they know. Someday perhaps that reader own star shall emerge, then it shall pierce the dark of a night in all its brilliant glory, until such time, and ever after, all of us give thanks.
Their journey began on a barren waste where the reader arrived, afraid and alone. When they arrived, the book of rites awakened the Nightwings and ignited the flame. They follow the stars bound together.
Is that supposed to be me?
Strands in our brain till the end. We sing of the last of the Nightwings who
No.
having broken the cycle.
This guy is the voice. That's Aralek.
live on in song. Headwind prevailed and strode the path that his heart laid before him. He
has found his way home. Captain Joe Dariel, mother to many a foundling, she has found her way home. Rookie Greentail has proved his worth and returned to his family by the grace of the scribes. They follow the stars, bound together, strands in a
Vai!
braid till the end.
Rookie looks weird without the mustache.
The moon-touched girl hears the scribes in the world all around her. They have guided her home.
'Tis all the wise, ever faithful to the cause of the Night Wings. He remained to the end. Sir Gilman the Bold, duty bound to honor the Night Wings. He remained to the end. Amethyst Thane, born on guilty wings, ever seeking forgiveness. She remained till the end. They follow the stars, bound together.
That's Sundover.
Stands in a braid till the end. Bound together, spirits tender,
Wow, Logan Cunningham appeared a lot.
the great mastermind, Wolfred Sandalwood, saw his plans turn to action. He remained till the end. The bog dweller Bertrude kept their foes at bay with her finest enchantments. She remained till the end. The reader at last made the Night Wings whole, having bound them together. They remained till the end. They follow the stars, bound together, strands in a braid till the end. They follow the stars, bound together, strands in a braid till the end. Now at the end, as we bid farewell and return to the stars, we shall find our way home. We shall find our way home. We shall find our way home.
Is this the end? Or is there something else? There's a library. Man, this game was awesome. Loved it. What a unique experience. I shall play this game myself like a couple more of times. I want to know what happens. I want to learn more about the stars. This was rather incredible. Incredible set of characters. Supergiant games is incredible. They always come with something interesting to play. The True Nightwings campaign mode unlocked. I gonna play this. Not gonna record though. But I will. Press enter to return to my menu. I shall. I will miss those characters. But anyway, I'd say thank you guys so much for watching. I am the Plane Shifter, and I will be seeing you in the next universe. Play Pyre, it's worth it. Take another path than I did. Make different decisions that affect the game. It was amazing. See you. I am phasing out.